What happens when a billionaire CEO dismisses the wrong person? When someone society renders invisible carries the very solution that could transform an empire. This is the story of Marcus Chen, a single father working as a handyman whose brilliant mind was hidden behind calloused hands and oil-stained coveralls. It's about Rebecca Stone, a tech mogul who learned that innovation doesn't always wear a three-piece suit. And it's about how one dismissed idea became the foundation of a revolution worth hundreds of millions. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The elevator at Nexus Dynamics hummed its mechanical tune as it carried Marcus Chen to the 42nd floor, his toolbox clanking softly against his leg with each gentle sway. The building was a monument to modern success, all glass and steel, reaching toward the Seattle sky like an arrow shot from ambition itself. Marcus had been maintaining the building's systems for 3 years now, but he might as well have been invisible to the executives who populated its upper floors. At 28, Marcus moved through the corporate hallways with the quiet efficiency of someone who understood that his presence was tolerated, not welcomed. His dark hair was always slightly disheveled from crawling through maintenance shafts, and his hands bore the permanent evidence of his trade, small scars from electrical work, calluses from gripping tools, and the faint outline of grease that never quite washed away completely. He wore the standard blue coveralls of building maintenance, his name embroidered in simple white thread over the left breast pocket, as if anyone cared to read it. The 42nd floor was different from the others. Here the carpet was thicker, the art more expensive, and the silence more profound. This was executive territory, where decisions worth millions were made over morning coffee and afternoon handshakes. Marcus had learned to time his maintenance visits carefully, arriving before the executives began their day or after they'd retreated to their evening meetings. It wasn't a rule anyone had explicitly stated, but some boundaries were communicated through glances rather than words. Today, however, his timing was off. The server room's cooling system had malfunctioned overnight, and Marcus had received an urgent call at 5 in the morning. By the time he emerged from the server room, wiping his hands on a work rag, the executive floor was alive with activity. He nearly collided with her as he rounded the corner toward the service elevator. Rebecca Stone stood in the hallway, speaking rapidly into her phone while simultaneously scrolling through messages on a tablet. She was younger than Marcus had expected for someone who commanded a tech empire worth billions, probably in her early 30s. With sharp features and auburn hair pulled back in a style that suggested she had neither time nor patience for anything frivolous. Marcus stepped aside quickly, pressing his back against the wall to give her space. She didn't acknowledge him, didn't even seem to register his presence as she swept past, her heels clicking a staccato rhythm against the polished floor. Her voice carried down the hallway as she discussed quarterly projections and market penetration with whoever was unfortunate enough to be on the other end of her early morning urgency. This was Rebecca Stone, the CEO who had built Nexus Dynamics from a college dorm room startup into one of the most influential tech companies on the West Coast. She was known for her brilliant mind, her ruthless efficiency, and her complete lack of tolerance for anything that didn't directly contribute to the company's bottom line. The tech blogs called her a visionary. The business magazines put her on their covers. Her employees called her demanding, brilliant, and utterly intimidating. Marcus watched her disappear around the corner, then shook his head and returned to his work. Their worlds couldn't have been more different if they'd existed on separate planets. She dealt in algorithms and market disruption. He dealt in broken air conditioners and faulty wiring. She wore designer suits that cost more than he made in a month. He wore coveralls that he washed in the same machine he'd inherited from his grandmother. The service elevator was a different beast, entirely from the smooth, whisper-quiet executive elevators. It groaned and lurched, carrying him down to the building's basement levels, where he kept his workspace. The basement was Marcus's domain, a maze of pipes, electrical conduits, and mechanical systems that kept the gleaming floors above functioning. Here, among the building's vital organs, he was the expert. Here his opinions mattered. But Marcus's real expertise lay hidden in the corner of his maintenance workshop, behind a partition made of salvaged plywood and old tarps. In this makeshift laboratory, surrounded by discarded computer components and electronics he'd rescued from the building's dumpster, Marcus pursued his true passion. While Rebecca Stone commanded boardrooms and made decisions that moved stock prices, Marcus Chen tinkered with circuits and wrote code on a laptop that was older than some of the interns working on the floors above. His daughter Lucy was the only person who truly knew about his hidden talents. At 8 years old, she possessed an insatiable curiosity about how things worked and why they broke. Every evening when Marcus picked her up from the after-school program, she would pepper him with questions about his day. Not the simple questions most children asked, but probing inquiries that revealed a mind already grasping the fundamentals of logic and problem-solving. Lucy was the reason Marcus had left his previous life behind. 3 years ago, when his wife Anna died in a car accident, Marcus had been a software engineer at a small startup in Portland. He'd had stock options, a 401k, and the kind of steady income that promised a comfortable future. But grief had a way of reshuffling priorities, and when Lucy needed stability more than ambition, Marcus had packed their lives into a U-Haul and moved to Seattle. The handyman job had been temporary, just something to pay the bills while he figured out their new normal. But temporary had a way of becoming permanent when you had a daughter who needed dinner every night and health insurance that couldn't lapse. The startup dreams could wait. The brilliant ideas could simmer on the back burner. Lucy needed a father who was present, reliable, and emotionally available, not one who disappeared into code for 18 hours at a time, chasing the next big breakthrough. Still, the ideas wouldn't stay buried. Marcus's mind was naturally inclined towards solving problems, and working in a building full of cutting-edge technology provided no shortage of inspiration. He saw inefficiencies everywhere, systems that could be streamlined, processes that could be automated. During his lunch breaks, he would sketch circuit diagrams on napkins. While waiting for Lucy at soccer practice, he would write algorithms in the margins of her homework folders. The idea that would change everything had been percolating for months. It started with a simple observation about the building's energy management system. Nexus Dynamics, like most modern office buildings, had sophisticated climate control, lighting management, and security systems. But these systems operated independently, each one optimized for its specific function without consideration for how they might work together more efficiently. Marcus had access to all of these systems as part of his maintenance duties. He'd noticed patterns in their usage, inefficiencies in their coordination, and opportunities for integration that could dramatically reduce both energy consumption and operational costs. More importantly, he'd begun to envision a unified management system that could learn from user behavior, anticipate needs, and optimize performance in real time using machine learning algorithms. It wasn't just an idea for improving building management. Marcus could see applications across entire smart city infrastructures, manufacturing facilities, and corporate campuses. The potential market was enormous, and the technology was achievable with current hardware and software capabilities. What was missing was someone with the vision to see how the pieces fit together and the resources to bring that vision to life. Marcus had spent his evenings for the past 6 months developing a prototype. Using salvaged components and open-source software, he'd built a scaled-down version of his integrated management system. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The prototype could monitor and control the lighting, temperature, and basic security systems in his small apartment, learning from his and Lucy's daily routines to optimize energy usage and comfort. The results were remarkable. His electricity bill had dropped by 30%. The apartment maintained more consistent temperatures, and the system had even learned to anticipate Lucy's after-school arrival, adjusting the lighting and temperature to welcome her home. It was a small-scale proof of concept, but Marcus knew it could be scaled up dramatically. The question that haunted him was what to do with the idea. He was a handyman with no business connections, no venture capital contacts, and no credibility in the tech world beyond a resume that was 3 years out of date. He could try to develop it independently, but that would require resources he didn't have and time he couldn't spare while raising Lucy alone. He could attempt to interest other companies in the concept, but approaching competitors of his current employer seemed both unethical and unlikely to succeed. The irony wasn't lost on him that he worked every day in a building owned by a company that might be the perfect partner for his innovation. Nexus Dynamics had the technical infrastructure, the market position, and the financial resources to turn his prototype into a revolutionary product. But the gap between Marcus the handyman and Rebecca Stone, the CEO, seemed unbridgeable. That gap became even more apparent during his next encounter with the executive floor. Marcus had been called upstairs to investigate a persistent problem with the conference room's presentation system. The main boardroom was a temple to corporate power, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay and a table that could seat 24 people in leather chairs that probably cost more than Marcus's monthly rent. He was elbow-deep in the AV cabinet, tracing a faulty connection, when voices approached the conference room. Marcus glanced at his watch and realized he'd miscalculated the timing of the meeting. He should have finished and departed 20 minutes ago, but the problem had been more complex than anticipated. "The system has been glitching for weeks," a male voice was saying as the conference room door opened. "It says it's not their problem. Facilities says it's not theirs. Meanwhile, we're trying to close a $200 million acquisition with a presentation system that crashes every 15 minutes. Marcus recognized the voice as belonging to David Park, the Chief Technology Officer. He was followed into the room by Rebecca Stone and several other executives Marcus didn't recognize by name, but had seen in the halls. Marcus tried to make himself even smaller behind the AV cabinet, hoping to finish his work and escape without disrupting their meeting. "Where's the IT response on this?" Rebecca's voice was crisp with irritation. "We can't have technical failures during client presentations. They claim it's a hardware issue with the building systems," David replied. "Outside their scope of responsibility." Marcus bit back the urge to correct them. He'd already identified the problem, a cascade failure caused by interference between the building's electrical systems and the conference room's dedicated network infrastructure. It wasn't a hardware issue in the traditional sense, but rather a design flaw in how the systems interfaced with each other. He could fix it in about 10 minutes if he could access the building's central electrical panel. "What about the handyman?" another voice suggested. "The maintenance guy who's always crawling around in the walls. Maybe he knows something about it." There was a moment of silence, then Rebecca's voice again, tinged with dismissive impatience. "The handyman. You want to bring building maintenance into a discussion about our mission-critical presentation systems. We need real solutions, not someone with a wrench and a basic understanding of electrical circuits." Marcus felt the words like a physical blow. He understood that Rebecca Stone had no reason to believe a handyman might possess relevant expertise, but the casual dismissal stung more than he'd expected. He remained frozen behind the AV cabinet, hoping they would leave so he could finish his work and retreat to the basement where his competence was unquestioned. But Lucy's voice echoed in his memory from their conversation the previous evening. She'd been working on a school project about problem-solving, and she'd asked Marcus what he did when other people didn't believe he could fix something. His answer had been simple: you show them by fixing it. Taking a deep breath, Marcus cleared his throat softly and spoke from behind the AV cabinet. "Excuse me, Ms. Stone. I might be able to help with the presentation system." The conference room fell silent. Marcus could feel the weight of surprised stares as he emerged from behind the cabinet. His hands dirty from the morning's work, his coveralls marking him clearly as building maintenance rather than technical support. Rebecca Stone turned toward him, her expression a mixture of surprise and barely concealed annoyance at the interruption. "I'm sorry, who are you?" "Marcus Chen, building maintenance. I've been investigating the AV system failures." Marcus fought to keep his voice steady and professional. "The problem isn't with your presentation hardware. It's interference from the building's power distribution system interacting with your dedicated network infrastructure." David Park frowned. "That doesn't make sense." "We have isolated power supplies for all critical systems." Marcus nodded. "You do, but there's harmonic distortion from the building's main electrical systems that's creating electromagnetic interference. It only affects certain frequencies, which is why the problem seems intermittent. When the building's HVAC systems cycle on high power mode, they generate harmonics that interfere with your network switches." The room was silent for a moment. Marcus could see Rebecca's eyes narrowing, evaluating whether his explanation made technical sense or if he was simply throwing around terminology he'd picked up from actual technicians. "And you know this how?" she asked, her tone skeptical but not entirely dismissive. Marcus hesitated. Revealing his background risked raising questions about why he was working as a handyman instead of in his trained field. But Lucy's lesson about showing people by solving problems echoed in his mind. "I have a background in electrical engineering and software development," he said quietly. "I can show you the interference patterns if you'd like, and I can fix the problem permanently with some adjustments to your power filtering systems." Rebecca Stone studied him for a long moment, as if seeing him for the first time, despite their previous encounters in the hallway. "You're telling me that our facility's handyman has identified a technical problem that our IT department and our building's engineering firm couldn't solve?" "Sometimes the solution comes from understanding how different systems interact with each other," Marcus replied. "I have access to parts of the building infrastructure that other technicians don't usually see." There was another pause. Then Rebecca made a decision that surprised everyone in the room, possibly including herself. "Show me." Marcus led the small group of executives down to the building's main electrical room, a space most of them had never seen, despite working in the building for years. Using a tablet he'd brought for diagnostics, Marcus showed them the electromagnetic field measurements he'd taken around the conference room during different times of day. The data clearly demonstrated the correlation between HVAC power cycling and network interference. The solution involves installing additional filtering capacitors in the building's main electrical panel and upgrading the shielding around your conference room network infrastructure, Marcus explained, pointing to specific components on the building's electrical schematic. "I can implement both changes for less than $2,000 in parts." David Park examined the data on Marcus's tablet, his initial skepticism giving way to professional interest. "This is actually quite sophisticated analysis. Where did you learn to use these diagnostic tools?" Marcus met his gaze directly. "I taught myself. Same place I learned to recognize electromagnetic interference patterns in integrated building systems." Rebecca Stone had remained quiet during this exchange, but Marcus could sense her attention focused on him with laser-like intensity. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a different quality than before, less dismissive and more curious. "Mr. Chen, you said you have a background in electrical engineering. What brought you to building maintenance?" The question Marcus had been dreading hung in the air between them. He could deflect, give a vague answer about career changes and family obligations. But something about the moment, about finally having his expertise recognized, made him choose honesty instead. "My wife died 3 years ago. I have an 8-year-old daughter, and I needed stability more than ambition. Building maintenance provides steady income and regular hours. It lets me be the father she needs me to be." The conference room group exchanged glances, and Marcus could see something shift in their expressions. Perhaps it was recognition that his career choice hadn't been driven by lack of ability, but by love and responsibility. Rebecca's voice softened slightly when she spoke again. "I'm sorry for your loss. and I apologize for my earlier dismissal of your expertise. Can you implement the fix you've described? I can have it completed by this afternoon, Marcus replied. The conference room system should work perfectly after that. Do it, Rebecca said decisively, and send me a full technical report on the problem and your solution. I want to understand exactly what our previous consultants missed. As the executives headed back upstairs, Marcus returned to his workshop to gather the necessary components. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had just changed. For the first time in 3 years, someone in the corporate world had seen past his coveralls to recognize the mind underneath. That afternoon, Marcus completed the electrical modifications exactly as he'd promised. The conference room presentation system performed flawlessly during its first test, and by evening, word had spread through the building's executive floors that the maintenance handyman had solved a problem that had stumped multiple technical consultants. Marcus was packing up his tools when his phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. The message was brief and professional. Mr. Chen, please see me in my office tomorrow at 9 a.m. We need to discuss your technical background. Rebecca Stone. Marcus stared at the message for several minutes, his mind racing with possibilities. Rebecca Stone wanted to meet with him. The CEO, who had dismissed him as someone with a wrench, now wanted a private conversation about his technical abilities. It could mean anything from a potential job offer to questions about why he hadn't disclosed his engineering background when he was hired. That evening, as he helped Lucy with her homework at their small kitchen table, Marcus found himself distracted by the upcoming meeting. Lucy noticed his preoccupation as she always did. "Dad, you seem worried about something," she said, looking up from her math workbook. "Did something bad happen at work?" Marcus smiled at his daughter's perceptive nature. At 8, she already possessed an emotional intelligence that amazed him. "Not bad exactly, sweetheart. Just unexpected. The CEO at my building wants to talk to me tomorrow." Lucy's eyes widened with interest. "The boss of all the bosses? What does she want to talk about?" "I think she's curious about some technical work I did today. I helped solve a problem that other people couldn't fix." Lucy beamed with pride. "Of course you did. You're the smartest person I know. Are you going to tell her about your special project?" Marcus paused. Lucy was the only person who knew about his prototype integrated management system. She'd helped him test it in their apartment, delighting in the way it learned their routines and adjusted their environment accordingly. To her, it was like having a helpful robot friend that made sure the lights were perfect for homework time and the temperature was just right for her bedtime stories. "I don't know yet," Marcus admitted. "It's complicated when you work for a company. There are rules about bringing your own projects to your boss." Lucy considered this seriously, then offered the kind of straightforward wisdom that only children could provide. "Well, if it could help lots of people, wouldn't that be good? And if she's smart enough to be the boss of all the bosses, wouldn't she want to know about something that could help people?" Marcus reached over and hugged his daughter, marveling once again at her ability to cut through complexity to reach simple truths. "You know what, Lucy? You're absolutely right. Sometimes the best thing you can do is tell the truth and see what happens." That night, after Lucy had gone to bed, Marcus sat at his computer and compiled a comprehensive presentation about his integrated building management system. He included technical specifications, cost-benefit analyses, market research, and video demonstrations from his apartment prototype. If Rebecca Stone wanted to understand his technical capabilities, he would show her exactly what those capabilities could accomplish. The question that kept him awake wasn't whether he should present his idea to Rebecca Stone. Lucy had convinced him that withholding potentially valuable innovation wasn't fair to anyone. The question was whether a billionaire CEO would be willing to listen to a revolutionary concept presented by a handyman, or whether the social and professional barriers between their worlds were too significant to overcome. As Marcus finally drifted off to sleep, he thought about the moment in the electrical room when Rebecca Stone had looked at his diagnostic data and seen past his coveralls to recognize genuine expertise. Tomorrow's meeting would reveal whether that recognition was a momentary aberration or the beginning of something that could change both their lives forever. The morning alarm came too early, but Marcus was already awake, his mind churning with anticipation and nervous energy. Today would either validate 3 years of hidden innovation or confirm that some barriers were too high for talent alone to overcome. As he prepared breakfast for Lucy and helped her get ready for school, Marcus tried to project the calm confidence that had carried him through 3 years of single parenthood and professional invisibility. But beneath the surface, hope flickered like a flame that had been carefully guarded through long months of doubt and dismissal. Today, Marcus Chen would discover whether genius could transcend social expectations, and whether a single father's love for his daughter could fuel the kind of breakthrough that transforms industries and changes lives. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor felt different this time, charged with possibility rather than routine maintenance. Marcus carried his laptop bag alongside his usual toolbox, ready to show Rebecca Stone that sometimes the most revolutionary ideas come from the most unexpected places. The question now was whether she would be ready to see them. The 42nd floor of Nexus Dynamics felt different at 8:50 in the morning. The usual bustle of executives rushing between meetings had not yet begun, and the hallways carried an almost reverent quiet that made Marcus's footsteps seem unnaturally loud against the polished marble. He had arrived 15 minutes early, partly from nervous energy and partly from a lifetime habit of punctuality that his mother had drilled into him since childhood. Rebecca Stone's office occupied the southeast corner of the building, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a commanding view of Elliott Bay and the Olympic Mountains beyond. Marcus had passed by these windows dozens of times while performing maintenance work, but he had never imagined he would be sitting on the other side of them, facing one of the most powerful technology executives on the West Coast. The receptionist, a polished woman in her 30s, whose smile seemed both genuine and professionally calibrated, gestured toward a leather chair outside Rebecca's office. "Mr. Stone is finishing up a call with Singapore. She'll be with you shortly." Marcus nodded his thanks and settled into the chair, his laptop bag resting against his leg. He had spent the previous evening preparing for this meeting with the same methodical attention to detail that he brought to complex electrical repairs. His presentation was loaded and ready, his technical documentation was organized and thorough, and his prototype demonstration videos were queued up for viewing. But preparation could only do so much to calm the nervous energy that had been building since Rebecca's text message the day before. Through the partially open door of her office, Marcus could hear Rebecca's voice, crisp and authoritative, as she discussed market projections with what sounded like the head of Nexus Dynamics' Asian operations. Her tone was professional but warm, suggesting a familiarity that came from years of successful collaboration. Marcus found himself impressed by her ability to shift seamlessly between technical specifications and business strategy, often within the same sentence. "The infrastructure deployment timeline is aggressive, but achievable if we can secure the regulatory approvals by next quarter," she was saying. "I need you to personally oversee the Singapore pilot program. Yes, I know it means extended travel, but this market entry could define our position for the next 5 years. Marcus caught glimpses of her through the doorway as she moved around her office during the call. She wore a charcoal grey suit that was clearly expensive, but not ostentatious, and her auburn hair was pulled back in a style that suggested efficiency over fashion. What struck him most was her energy, a focused intensity that seemed to charge the air around her. This was someone who approached every aspect of her life with the same systematic determination that had built her company from a college dorm room concept into a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. The call concluded with what sounded like decisive action items and clear deadlines. Marcus heard the soft click of a phone being placed in its cradle, followed by a moment of silence. Then Rebecca's voice, closer now, speaking to her receptionist. Sarah, hold my calls for the next hour and see if you can reschedule the 10:30 with marketing. I may need more time than originally planned. The receptionist's voice was equally professional. Of course, Miss Stone. Should I offer them the 2 o'clock slot that opened up yesterday? Perfect. Thank you. A moment later, Rebecca appeared in her doorway. Up close, Marcus could see that she was younger than her public photographs suggested, probably in her early 30s, with intelligent green eyes that seemed to take in and catalogue everything around her. When she looked at Marcus, he had the distinct impression that she was seeing him completely, not just the surface details, but something deeper. Mr. Chen, thank you for coming up. Please come in. Rebecca's office was surprisingly personal for such a high-level corporate space. While one wall was dominated by a massive monitor displaying real-time company performance metrics, another featured photographs from various stages of Nexus Dynamics growth, from early startup photos taken in cramped shared offices to recent images of ribbon-cutting ceremonies at new facilities around the world. Her desk, a sleek glass surface that seemed to float above its chrome supports, held only a laptop, a single notepad, and a small framed photograph of what appeared to be a golden retriever. Marcus settled into the chair across from her desk while Rebecca poured 2 cups of coffee from a high-end machine in the corner of her office. The coffee was significantly better than anything Marcus had tasted in years, rich and complex, with hints of chocolate and citrus. I hope you don't mind that I did some research on you after our conversation yesterday, Rebecca said, without preamble. Your resume makes for interesting reading. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. His employment history was a matter of record, but he had hoped to control the narrative around his career transition. I'm sure it raises some questions. Rebecca smiled, and for the first time since he had known of her existence, the expression seemed genuinely warm rather than professionally cordial. It raises questions, yes, but not the kind you might think. Your academic record at MIT is exceptional. Your work at Cascade Systems shows a progression from junior developer to lead architect in less than 2 years. Your colleagues there describe you as brilliant, innovative, and completely reliable. She paused to sip her coffee, studying Marcus over the rim of her cup. What puzzles me is not why you left software development, but why someone with your capabilities has been content to work building maintenance for 3 years, when you could clearly command a senior position at any tech company in Seattle. The directness of her question was both refreshing and intimidating. Marcus had grown accustomed to people accepting his surface explanation without probing deeper. Rebecca Stone, it seemed, was not inclined to accept surface explanations. Lucy needed stability more than I needed career advancement, Marcus said simply. When Anna died, my priorities shifted. Lucy was 6 years old and had already lost her mother. I couldn't risk putting her through the instability that comes with startup culture, or the demands of senior technical positions. Rebecca nodded slowly. Cascade Systems folded 8 months after you left. The product you'd been developing never made it to market. Marcus hadn't known about Cascade's failure, though he wasn't entirely surprised. The company had been struggling with funding and direction even before his departure. I'm sorry to hear that. There were some good people there. There were, Rebecca agreed. Several of them work for me now. That's how I learned about your reputation. David Martinez, who heads our machine learning division, worked with you at Cascade. He had some very complimentary things to say about your approach to complex system integration. The conversation was taking a direction that Marcus hadn't anticipated. He had expected questions about the conference room repair, possibly some curiosity about his technical background. He had not expected a CEO to conduct what amounted to a background investigation and reach out to his former colleagues. Miss Stone, I appreciate the thorough research, but I'm not sure where this is leading. If you're concerned about my qualifications to perform building maintenance, I can assure you that my work record here speaks for itself. Rebecca laughed, a genuine sound that transformed her entire demeanor. Mr. Chen, I'm not questioning your ability to fix air conditioners. I'm trying to understand why someone with your talents has been fixing air conditioners instead of designing the systems that control them." She stood and walked to the window, gesturing for Marcus to join her. The view from 42 floors up was spectacular, with Elliott Bay stretching toward the horizon and the Olympic Mountains forming a dramatic backdrop. But Marcus found himself watching Rebecca's reflection in the glass rather than the scenery beyond. "When I started Nexus Dynamics, I was 23 years old, with a computer science degree, and an idea that most people thought was impractical," she said quietly. "I spent 2 years getting rejected by venture capitalists who couldn't see past my age and gender to understand what I was proposing." She turned to face Marcus directly. "The breakthrough came when I stopped trying to convince people that my idea had merit and started demonstrating that it worked. I built a prototype in my apartment, tested it with small businesses in the university district, and compiled performance data that was impossible to ignore." Marcus felt a flutter of recognition, though he wasn't sure where the conversation was heading. Sometimes the best argument for an idea is proof that it functions. "Exactly." Rebecca walked back to her desk and opened her laptop. "Which brings me to why I really wanted to speak with you this morning. The conference room repair you performed yesterday was impressive, but it wasn't what caught my attention." She turned the laptop screen toward Marcus, and he felt his breath catch in his throat. The display showed a detailed technical analysis of the building's energy management systems, complete with usage patterns, efficiency metrics, and optimization recommendations. It was far more comprehensive than anything Marcus had expected. "Our building management company provides quarterly efficiency reports," Rebecca continued. "But this analysis goes deeper than anything they've ever delivered. It identifies specific system interactions, suggests targeted improvements, and projects cost savings that would justify significant infrastructure investments." Marcus studied the data on the screen, recognizing patterns and insights that aligned with his own observations. "This is very thorough work. Who compiled it?" Rebecca's smile was knowing. "According to the metadata, it was generated by someone with administrative access to our building systems. Someone who has been conducting detailed analysis of our energy usage patterns for the past 6 months. The implication hit Marcus like a physical blow. His after-hours access to the building's management systems had been for legitimate maintenance purposes, but he had used that access to gather data for his own research. He had been careful not to access anything beyond his authorized scope, but apparently not careful enough to avoid leaving digital fingerprints. "I can explain," Marcus began, but Rebecca held up a hand to stop him. "You don't need to explain anything to me. You had authorized access to the systems you analyzed, and your research didn't interfere with any operational functions. What interests me is the sophistication of your analysis and the potential applications of your conclusions." She closed the laptop and returned to her chair, gesturing for Marcus to do the same. "Mr. Chen, I've been looking for someone with exactly your combination of technical expertise and practical experience. Nexus Dynamics is moving into smart building management and IoT integration. We have brilliant software developers and talented hardware engineers, but we lack someone who understands how these systems actually function in real-world environments." Marcus felt the conversation shifting in a direction he had hoped for, but hadn't dared to expect. "You're offering me a position?" "I'm exploring whether there's a mutual fit," Rebecca replied carefully. "Your technical credentials are impressive. Your practical experience is exactly what we need, and your analytical approach to complex systems aligns perfectly with our development philosophy." She paused, and Marcus could sense that she was choosing her words carefully. "But I also understand that you have responsibilities that might make a traditional corporate position challenging. I'm not interested in disrupting the stability you've built for your daughter." And the acknowledgement of Lucy's importance in his decision-making process touched Marcus more than he had expected. Most employers viewed parental responsibilities as obstacles to be worked around rather than considerations to be respected. "What kind of position are you considering?" Marcus asked. Rebecca opened a different file on her laptop, displaying what appeared to be an organizational chart for a new division within Nexus Dynamics. "We're launching a smart infrastructure solutions group focused on integrated building management systems. The division will develop both software platforms and hardware solutions for commercial and residential applications." She pointed to a position near the top of the organizational chart. "I'm looking for a technical director who can bridge the gap between our development teams and real-world implementation challenges. Someone who understands not just how these systems should work in theory, but how they actually behave in practice." Marcus studied the organizational chart, noting the reporting relationships and team structures. The position Rebecca was describing would involve significant responsibility and substantial autonomy, exactly the kind of role he had been working toward before Anna's death had redirected his priorities. "The compensation package would be substantial," Rebecca continued, "but more importantly, the role would offer flexible scheduling and the option to work remotely when necessary. I understand that Lucy's needs have to come first." Odile, the offer was more generous than Marcus had imagined possible, but he found himself hesitating for reasons he couldn't immediately articulate. 3 years of invisible competence had made him cautious about sudden recognition, and the leap from building maintenance to technical director seemed almost too dramatic to be real. Rebecca seemed to sense his uncertainty. "You're wondering if this is legitimate, or if I'm making an impulsive decision based on limited information." Marcus nodded, appreciating her directness. "Let me show you something," Rebecca said, pulling up another file on her laptop. The screen displayed a complex technical schematic that Marcus immediately recognized as a building automation system architecture. But this wasn't just any building system. It was a detailed plan for integrating multiple subsystems into a unified management platform, using machine learning algorithms and predictive analytics. "This is the conceptual framework for our smart building platform," Rebecca explained. "We've been developing it for 18 months, but we keep running into implementation challenges. Our software team understands the algorithms, and our hardware team knows the components, but nobody fully grasps how all the pieces work together in a real building environment." Marcus studied the schematic, his mind automatically analyzing the system interactions and potential optimization opportunities. The design was sophisticated but incomplete, missing several key integration points that would be necessary for optimal performance. "The sensor network architecture needs refinement," Marcus said, almost without thinking. "You're collecting data from HVAC, lighting and security systems, but you're not accounting for the interaction effects between them. When the HVAC system adjusts temperature, it affects occupancy detection accuracy. When lighting levels change, it impacts the effectiveness of security cameras." Rebecca leaned forward, her attention focused intently on Marcus's analysis. "Go on. You need additional sensor nodes to monitor the interaction effects, and your machine learning algorithms need to account for these dependencies," Marcus continued, his engineering instincts taking over. "Otherwise, the system will optimize individual subsystems without considering the overall building performance." He paused, realizing that he was essentially critiquing the work of Rebecca's development team based on a 60-second review of their schematic. "I'm sorry, I don't mean to criticize your team's work without understanding their full approach." Rebecca smiled broadly. "Don't apologize. You've just identified the exact problem that's been plaguing our development process for months. Our teams have been optimizing individual systems without sufficient consideration for the integration challenges." She stood up and walked to a whiteboard that occupied most of one wall of her office. "Show me what you would do differently." For the next hour, Marcus found himself deep in technical discussion with Rebecca, sketching system architectures and explaining integration strategies on her whiteboard. She followed his reasoning easily, asking insightful questions that demonstrated both her technical knowledge and her understanding of business implications. What impressed Marcus most was Rebecca's ability to think simultaneously about technical feasibility and market opportunity. When he described a potential optimization algorithm, she immediately grasped its implications for energy cost savings. When he outlined a hardware configuration, she understood its impact on installation complexity and maintenance requirements. "This is exactly the kind of systems thinking we need," Rebecca said, as Marcus finished explaining his approach to predictive maintenance algorithms. "You're not just solving individual problems. You're designing holistic solutions." Marcus stepped back from the whiteboard, suddenly conscious of how carried away he had become with the technical discussion. "I apologize for monopolizing your time. I know you have other meetings." Rebecca glanced at her watch, seeming surprised by how much time had passed. "Actually, you've been helping me solve problems that have been consuming weeks of my development team's time. This has been the most productive meeting I've had in months." She returned to her desk and pulled out a folder containing what appeared to be several legal documents. "Mr. Chen, I'd like to make you a formal offer for the technical director position. The salary and benefits package is detailed in these documents, along with the job description and reporting structure." Marcus accepted the folder, but didn't open it immediately. "Miss Stone, I appreciate the offer, but I have to ask, why me? You could hire someone with more recent corporate experience, someone who doesn't come with the complications of single parenthood and career gaps." Rebecca was quiet for a moment, seeming to consider how to answer. When she spoke, her voice carried a thoughtful sincerity that Marcus hadn't heard before. 3 years ago, I hired a very expensive consulting firm to analyze our building's energy efficiency and recommend improvements. They spent 2 months conducting their analysis and charged us $250,000 for a report that essentially told us our systems were operating within normal parameters. She paused, looking out the window toward Elliott Bay. "Yesterday, you identified specific problems and solutions in a matter of hours, using insights gained from actually working with these systems every day. You solved a technical problem that had stumped multiple consultants, and you did it because you took the time to understand how different systems interact with each other." Rebecca turned back to Marcus. "I've learned that the best innovations often come from people who see familiar problems from unfamiliar perspectives. You have the technical expertise to design sophisticated systems and the practical experience to understand how they actually perform. That combination is extremely rare and extremely valuable." Marcus felt something shift inside him, a stirring of professional ambition that he had suppressed for 3 years. The opportunity Rebecca was offering represented not just career advancement, but a chance to work on problems that genuinely excited him, to use his abilities in ways that could create meaningful impact. But Lucy's needs remained paramount, and Marcus knew he couldn't make any decision without considering how it would affect her stability and well-being. "I need to think about this," Marcus said carefully, "not because I'm not interested, but because any major change in my career has to be right for Lucy." Rebecca nodded immediately. "Of course, take all the time you need. The position will remain open while you consider your options." She walked Marcus to her office door, then paused. "There's one more thing I should mention. The Smart Infrastructure Solutions Division will be working on projects that could have significant social impact. Smart building systems can reduce energy consumption, lower housing costs, and make buildings more accessible for people with disabilities." Rebecca's expression grew more serious. "I believe technology should serve people, not just profit margins. The work we're doing in this division aligns with that philosophy. I thought you should know that, given what you've sacrificed to prioritize your daughter's well-being." As Marcus left Rebecca's office and walked toward the elevator, he found himself carrying more than just a job offer. He was carrying the possibility of professional redemption, the chance to use his abilities in service of something larger than personal advancement. But he was also carrying the weight of a decision that would affect not just his own future, but Lucy's as well. The elevator ride to the basement gave Marcus time to process the morning's conversation. Rebecca Stone had seen through his carefully constructed invisibility to recognize his capabilities and offer him an opportunity that aligned perfectly with his professional interests. But more than that, she had demonstrated an understanding of his personal priorities that made the opportunity genuinely viable. Marcus spent the rest of the day performing his regular maintenance duties, but his mind kept returning to the technical discussions in Rebecca's office. The problems she had outlined were exactly the kind of complex, multidisciplinary challenges that had originally drawn him to engineering. The Smart Infrastructure Solutions division represented an opportunity to work on innovations that could improve people's lives while advancing the field of building automation. But the transition from maintenance worker to technical director would be dramatic, both professionally and personally. Marcus had grown comfortable with the predictable rhythms of his current job, the clear boundaries between work and family time, and the financial stability that allowed him to focus on being the father Lucy needed. That evening, as Marcus prepared dinner in their small apartment kitchen, Lucy sat at the counter working on homework while providing her usual commentary on her day at school. She had inherited her mother's ability to find interesting details in seemingly routine events, and her descriptions of third-grade social dynamics were often more insightful than many adult conversations Marcus encountered. "Dad, you seem different today," Lucy observed, as she carefully colored a map of the United States for her geography project. "Like you're thinking about something important." Marcus smiled at his daughter's perceptiveness. At 8 years old, she had already developed an uncanny ability to read his moods and emotional state. "I had an interesting meeting at work today. The CEO offered me a different job." Lucy looked up from her coloring, her brown eyes bright with curiosity. "A better job?" "A different job," Marcus replied carefully. "It would involve more responsibility and more interesting work, but it would also mean some changes in our routine." Lucy considered this with the seriousness that she brought to all important topics. "What kind of changes?" Marcus sat down beside her at the counter, choosing his words carefully. "I might have to travel sometimes for meetings or to visit other buildings where the company is installing new systems. And I might have to work some evenings or weekends when we're launching new projects." Lucy nodded thoughtfully, then returned her attention to her map. "Would you be happier doing the new job?" The question caught Marcus off guard with its directness. Lucy had inherited not just her mother's perceptiveness, but also her ability to cut through complexity to reach the heart of an issue. "I think I would," Marcus admitted. "It would let me work on problems that I find really interesting, and it might help make buildings work better for lots of people." Lucy finished coloring Texas before responding. "Then you should probably take it. I'm old enough to handle some changes, and Mrs. Rodriguez next door said she could help with pickups from school if you ever needed it." Marcus felt a surge of pride in his daughter's maturity, mixed with a pang of concern about asking her to adapt to yet another major change in their lives. "Are you sure? It would mean less predictability in our schedule." Lucy put down her crayon and looked at him directly. "Dad, I know you've been taking care of me really well since Mom died, but I can tell you miss doing the smart work you used to do. If this job would make you happy and help other people, we can figure out the rest." Marcus pulled Lucy into a hug, marveling once again at her wisdom and resilience. At 8 years old, she was already demonstrating the kind of thoughtful decision-making that many adults never developed. That night, after Lucy had gone to bed, Marcus sat at his computer and opened the folder Rebecca had given him. The compensation package was indeed substantial, more than double his current salary, with benefits that would provide excellent security for Lucy's future. The job description outlined responsibilities that would challenge him professionally, while allowing for the kind of creative problem-solving that had always energized him. But beyond the practical considerations, Marcus found himself drawn to Rebecca's vision of technology serving people rather than just generating profits. The Smart Infrastructure Solutions division would work on systems that could reduce energy costs for families, make buildings more accessible for elderly and disabled residents, and improve safety and security in schools and hospitals. Marcus opened his laptop and began drafting an email to Rebecca, accepting her offer while outlining his requirements for flexible scheduling and family-first priorities. As he wrote, he felt something he hadn't experienced in 3 years, genuine excitement about professional challenges ahead. The next morning, Marcus arrived at work an hour early to complete his transition plan for his maintenance responsibilities. He had compiled detailed documentation for all the building systems, created troubleshooting guides for common problems, and prepared training materials for whoever would take over his duties. Rebecca had asked him to start his new position the following Monday, which would give him a week to wrap up his current responsibilities and prepare for the transition. But first, he had something else he needed to show her. Marcus took the service elevator to his basement workshop and carefully packed his prototype integrated building management system. The device itself was unremarkable looking, a collection of circuit boards, sensors and processors housed in a metal case that had previously contained networking equipment. But the software running on those components represented months of careful development and testing. At 9 o'clock, Marcus took the executive elevator to the 42nd floor for the second time in his career at Nexus Dynamics. This time, however, he carried himself differently. He was no longer the invisible maintenance worker seeking to avoid disruption of important business activities. He was a technical professional with valuable insights and innovative solutions. Rebecca's receptionist smiled warmly when she saw him. "Good morning, Mr. Chen. Miss Stone is expecting you." Rebecca looked up from her computer when Marcus entered her office, and her expression immediately shifted to one of curiosity when she noticed the metal case he was carrying. "I take it you've made a decision about the position," she said, gesturing for him to sit down. "I'd like to accept your offer," Marcus replied. "But first, I want to show you something that might be relevant to the Smart Infrastructure Solutions division." He placed the metal case on Rebecca's desk and opened it, revealing the compact array of electronic components inside. "This is a prototype integrated building management system that I've been developing in my spare time. It demonstrates the kind of holistic optimization approach we discussed yesterday." Rebecca leaned forward, studying the device with professional interest. "You built this yourself?" Marcus nodded, connecting the device to his laptop and opening the demonstration software. "It's been running the building systems in my apartment for the past 6 months. The system learns from occupancy patterns, weather forecasts, and energy pricing to optimize heating, cooling, lighting, and security functions." Over the next hour, Marcus walked Rebecca through his prototype's capabilities, showing her performance data, energy savings metrics, and the machine learning algorithms that enabled the system to adapt to changing conditions. What had started as a personal project to reduce his utility bills had evolved into a sophisticated platform that could revolutionize building management across multiple market segments. Rebecca asked detailed questions about scalability, manufacturing costs, and intellectual property considerations. Her background in business development was evident in her ability to see beyond the technical demonstration to its market potential. "This is remarkable work," Rebecca said as Marcus concluded his presentation. "The applications extend far beyond individual residential units. This could be scaled for office buildings, shopping centers, hospitals, schools." "Exactly," Marcus replied. "The core algorithms can adapt to any building type by learning from usage patterns and optimizing for the specific performance metrics that matter in each environment." Rebecca was quiet for several minutes, studying the technical specifications Marcus had provided. When she finally looked up, her expression was thoughtful and calculating. "Mr. Chen, what you've developed here isn't just a prototype. It's a potential foundation for an entirely new product line. The market opportunity could be enormous. She stood up and walked to her whiteboard, where the previous day's technical diagrams were still visible. Our current smart building platform is designed around existing industry standards and conventional approaches. Your system represents a completely different paradigm. Marcus felt a flutter of excitement mixed with uncertainty. He had hoped Rebecca would be interested in his prototype, but he hadn't anticipated such an enthusiastic response. "What are you thinking?" he asked. Rebecca turned to face him directly. "I'm thinking that we should restructure your role in the Smart Infrastructure Solutions division. Instead of joining an existing development project, you should lead the development of a new product line based on your integrated management system." The proposal was more ambitious than anything Marcus had imagined. Leading a new product development effort would involve significant responsibility, substantial resources, and the kind of high-visibility role he had avoided for 3 years. "That's a much larger commitment than we originally discussed," Marcus said carefully. "It's also a much larger opportunity," Rebecca replied, "both for you professionally and for Nexus Dynamics commercially. Your prototype demonstrates innovations that could establish us as the market leader in truly intelligent building management." She returned to her desk and pulled out a different set of documents. "I'm prepared to offer you a senior director position with equity participation and a development budget that would allow you to build a dedicated team around your innovations." Marcus felt the conversation accelerating beyond his ability to process all the implications. 24 hours earlier, he had been a building maintenance worker hoping to interest a CEO in his technical abilities. Now, he was being offered the opportunity to lead a major product development initiative at one of the region's most successful technology companies. "Miss Stone, I'm honored by your confidence in my work, but I need to understand what this would mean practically. Leading a product development team is very different from the technical director role we discussed yesterday." Rebecca nodded, appreciating his caution. "You're absolutely right. Let me outline what I'm proposing more specifically." She spent the next 30 minutes detailing her vision for the new product line, including market analysis, competitive positioning, and resource allocation. The scope was ambitious but achievable, with a development timeline that would allow for careful testing and refinement before market launch. What impressed Marcus most was Rebecca's understanding of both the technical challenges and the business opportunities. She had clearly been thinking about smart building systems as a strategic market for Nexus Dynamics, and his prototype provided exactly the kind of innovative foundation she had been seeking. The timeline we're discussing would involve an 18-month development cycle followed by a pilot program with selected commercial partners, Rebecca explained. You would have complete technical authority over the development process, with a team of software engineers, hardware specialists, and systems integrators reporting to you. Marcus studied the organizational chart Rebecca had sketched on her whiteboard. The structure would give him the resources and autonomy necessary to bring his vision to full commercial reality, while providing the kind of collaborative environment that had always brought out his best work. "What about intellectual property considerations?" Marcus asked. "I developed the prototype independently, using my own time and resources." Rebecca smiled. "I was hoping you would raise that question. Nexus Dynamics would license your existing intellectual property and provide you with equity participation in any products developed from your innovations. You would retain ownership of your original work while sharing in the commercial success of the products we develop together." The arrangement was more generous than Marcus had expected, reflecting both the value of his innovations and Rebecca's commitment to fair dealing with her key personnel. Marcus felt the weight of a life-changing decision settling on his shoulders. The opportunity Rebecca was offering represented everything he had worked toward professionally before Anna's death had redirected his priorities. It was the chance to transform his years of hidden development into products that could improve millions of people's lives while establishing him as a leader in his field. But it was also a significant risk, both professionally and personally. Leading a major product development initiative would require the kind of sustained commitment and focused attention that might conflict with his responsibilities as Lucy's sole parent. "I need to discuss this with Lucy," Marcus said finally. "This is a much bigger change than we originally talked about, and she needs to understand what it would mean for our family." Rebecca nodded immediately. "Of course. And please don't feel pressured to decide quickly. This is the kind of opportunity that needs to be right for everyone involved." She walked Marcus to her office door, then paused. "I want you to know that I wouldn't be making this offer if I didn't believe you could succeed. Your technical abilities are outstanding, but more importantly, you have the kind of systematic thinking and practical judgment that distinguishes great product developers from merely competent engineers." As Marcus left Rebecca's office for the second time in 2 days, he carried with him not just a job offer, but a vision of professional possibility that he had thought was permanently beyond his reach. The transition from building maintenance to senior product development leadership would be dramatic, but it would also represent the culmination of years of patient skill development and innovative thinking. That evening, Marcus sat with Lucy at their kitchen counter, showing her pictures and videos of the smart building systems they might develop together. Lucy listened with the focused attention she brought to all interesting problems, asking questions that revealed her growing understanding of how technology could solve real-world challenges. "So your invention could help schools save money on electricity?" Lucy asked, studying a diagram of energy optimization algorithms. "Exactly," Marcus replied. "And it could make buildings more comfortable for people, safer in emergencies, and easier for elderly or disabled people to navigate." Lucy nodded thoughtfully. "That sounds like really important work, Dad. More important than fixing broken air conditioners." Marcus smiled at his daughter's ability to grasp the essential significance of complex issues. "Do you think you could handle the changes that would come with my new job? More responsibility for me might mean some different routines for us." Lucy looked at him with the serious expression she used for important decisions. "Dad, I think Mom would want you to do work that helps lots of people and makes you happy. And I think I'm old enough to be your partner in making it work." Marcus felt tears threaten as he pulled Lucy into a hug. At 8 years old, she was already demonstrating the wisdom and generosity of spirit that had made her mother so special. Together, they would navigate this new chapter of their lives with the same courage and determination that had carried them through 3 years of rebuilding after loss. The next morning, Marcus sent an email to Rebecca Stone, accepting her offer to lead the development of Nexus Dynamics' new integrated building management platform. As he hit the send button, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced since before Anna's death. The profound satisfaction of aligning his professional capabilities with his personal values, while building a future that would honor both his responsibilities as a father and his potential as an innovator. The handyman who had been dismissed and overlooked was about to become the architect of a revolution in smart building technology, proving that genius can emerge from the most unexpected places when it's nurtured by love, sustained by determination, and recognized by someone with the vision to see beyond surface appearances to essential capabilities. 6 months after Marcus Chen had accepted Rebecca Stone's offer to lead Nexus Dynamics' Smart Infrastructure Solutions division, the company's downtown Seattle headquarters buzzed with an energy that hadn't been felt since the early startup days. The 42nd floor had been transformed into a dedicated development center, with open workspaces filled with engineers, designers, and systems specialists who had been handpicked by Marcus to bring his integrated building management vision to life. The team Marcus had assembled reflected his belief that the best innovations emerged from diverse perspectives and collaborative problem-solving. Sarah Kim, a brilliant software architect who had previously worked at Microsoft, led the machine learning development that would enable buildings to learn from occupant behavior and optimize performance accordingly. James Rodriguez, a mechanical engineer with extensive experience in HVAC systems, focused on the hardware integration challenges that would allow different building subsystems to communicate seamlessly. Dr. Elena Petrov, a data scientist who had completed her PhD in environmental engineering, developed the algorithms that would minimize energy consumption while maintaining optimal comfort levels. But perhaps the most valuable member of Marcus's team was someone who didn't appear on any organizational chart. Lucy Chen, now 9 years old and in 4th grade, had become an unofficial consultant on user experience design. Her questions about how the system would work for children, elderly people, and individuals with disabilities consistently led to insights that the adult engineers had overlooked. Every evening, Marcus would bring home prototypes and demonstration videos to share with Lucy during their dinner conversations. Her reactions and suggestions had directly influenced several key design decisions, including the development of intuitive visual interfaces that could be understood by users of all ages and technical backgrounds. The project had evolved far beyond Marcus's original apartment prototype. What had begun as a simple energy optimization system had grown into a comprehensive platform that could manage every aspect of a building's environmental, security, and operational systems. The technology could adapt to seasonal changes, predict maintenance needs, optimize space utilization, and even adjust lighting and temperature based on the specific activities taking place in different areas of a building. Marcus stood in the main development laboratory, watching his team conduct final tests on the pilot system that would be installed in Nexus Dynamics' own headquarters. The installation would serve as both a proving ground for the technology and a demonstration platform for potential customers. If the system performed as expected, it would validate months of intensive development work and position Nexus Dynamics as the leader in next-generation building automation. Rebecca entered the laboratory as Marcus was reviewing performance data from the morning's tests. Over the past 6 months, their professional relationship had evolved into something deeper than typical corporate hierarchy. Rebecca had proven to be not just a supportive executive, but a true partner in advancing the project's ambitious goals. Her business acumen complemented Marcus's technical expertise, and her ability to communicate complex concepts to investors and customers had been instrumental in securing the resources necessary for full-scale development. "How are we looking for tomorrow's demonstration?" Rebecca asked, examining the array of sensors, control units, and monitoring equipment that filled the laboratory. Tomorrow would mark a crucial milestone in the project's development. A group of potential customers, including representatives from major real estate companies, hospital systems, and educational institutions, would tour the Nexus Dynamics headquarters to see the integrated building management system in operation. The demonstration would determine whether Marcus's innovations could transition from promising prototypes to commercially viable products. "The system is performing better than our most optimistic projections," Marcus replied, pulling up real-time data on one of the laboratory's large displays. "Energy consumption is down 37% compared to the building's previous baseline, while occupant satisfaction scores have increased significantly across all measured categories." Rebecca studied the performance metrics, her expression showing both satisfaction and amazement. "These numbers are remarkable. Even our internal projections didn't anticipate this level of improvement." Marcus nodded, though he remained focused on potential challenges rather than celebrating early successes. The real test will be how the system adapts to the increased building traffic during tomorrow's demonstration. "We're expecting nearly 200 visitors, which is well above normal occupancy levels." The integrated building management system had been designed to handle exactly these kinds of variations in building usage, But tomorrow would provide the first opportunity to test those capabilities under real-world conditions. The system's machine learning algorithms would need to recognize the unusual activity patterns, adjust environmental controls accordingly, and maintain optimal conditions despite the disruption to normal routines. Sarah Kim approached Marcus and Rebecca with a tablet displaying the latest algorithm performance data. The predictive models are showing excellent adaptation to changing occupancy patterns, she reported. The system successfully anticipated this morning's early team meeting and had the conference room at optimal temperature and lighting levels before anyone arrived. This kind of intelligent anticipation represented one of the most innovative aspects of Marcus's system design. Rather than simply reacting to changes in building conditions, the technology learned from patterns of human behavior to predict future needs and prepare building systems accordingly. The result was a more comfortable environment for occupants and significantly more efficient energy usage. James Rodriguez joined the group, carrying a tablet that displayed mechanical systems data. HVAC integration is performing flawlessly. The system is making micro-adjustments to air circulation patterns based on real-time occupancy detection, and the indoor air quality metrics are consistently exceeding industry standards. Dr. Elena Petrov added her own positive report on the environmental optimization algorithms. Carbon emissions are down 42% compared to the building's previous performance, primarily due to more intelligent coordination between heating, cooling, and lighting systems. The environmental impact metrics are exceeding our most ambitious targets. Marcus felt a familiar surge of pride in his team's accomplishments, tempered by the engineer's natural inclination to identify potential problems before they became critical issues. Excellent work, everyone. Let's run one more comprehensive systems check this afternoon to ensure everything is operating at peak performance for tomorrow's demonstration. As the team dispersed to conduct their final preparations, Rebecca remained with Marcus in the laboratory. Over the months of intense collaboration, she had developed a deep appreciation for his methodical approach to complex problems and his ability to maintain focus on long-term objectives while managing countless technical details. "You know," Rebecca said, watching the real-time building performance data scroll across the laboratory displays, 6 months ago, I thought I was hiring a technical director to help optimize our existing smart building platform. I had no idea I was partnering with someone who would revolutionize the entire field. Marcus appreciated Rebecca's recognition, but he remained focused on the challenges ahead rather than dwelling on past accomplishments. The real revolution will come when this technology is deployed across thousands of buildings, reducing energy consumption and improving quality of life for millions of people. Tomorrow's demonstration is just the beginning of that process. Rebecca smiled at Marcus's characteristic combination of ambition and humility. Despite the remarkable success of his innovations, he remained grounded in the practical considerations that had shaped his approach to engineering throughout his career. The afternoon systems check revealed that the integrated building management platform was operating at optimal performance across all measured parameters. The technology had successfully learned the behavioral patterns of Nexus Dynamics employees, adapted to seasonal weather variations, and maintained consistently superior environmental conditions while dramatically reducing energy consumption. That evening, Marcus arrived home to find Lucy working on a school project that involved designing an environmentally friendly building. Her assignment was to create a poster showing how different building systems could work together to reduce energy waste and create a more comfortable environment for the people inside. "Dad, can you help me understand how your invention knows when to turn the lights brighter or dimmer?" Lucy asked as Marcus examined her carefully drawn building diagrams. Marcus sat down beside his daughter at their kitchen table, pulling out his laptop to show her the sensor networks and machine learning algorithms that enabled the system to monitor and respond to changing conditions. Lucy listened with the focused attention she brought to all interesting problems, asking questions that revealed her growing understanding of how technology could solve real-world challenges. So the building is almost like a really smart robot that learns what people need and tries to help them, Lucy asked, after Marcus had explained the basic principles of adaptive building management. That's exactly right, Marcus replied, impressed once again by his daughter's ability to grasp complex concepts through intuitive analogies. The building watches how people use different spaces and learns to provide exactly the right environment for whatever activities are happening. Lucy nodded thoughtfully, then added her own insight. It's like how Mom used to know when I was getting tired and would turn down the lights in my room even before I said I was sleepy. Marcus felt a familiar pang of emotion at the mention of Anna, mixed with gratitude for Lucy's ability to find positive connections between past memories and present experiences. Yes, it's very much like that. The building learns to take care of people the same way a caring person would. The next morning arrived with unusual energy throughout the Nexus Dynamics headquarters. The building's integrated management system had automatically adjusted lighting levels and temperature settings to account for the increased occupancy expected during the demonstration, and Marcus could see the technology performing exactly as designed. The visiting group included executives from major real estate development companies, facilities managers from hospital systems and universities, and representatives from city government agencies interested in smart city applications. Rebecca had carefully selected attendees who had both the authority to make purchasing decisions and the technical background to understand the system's capabilities. Marcus began the demonstration in the main conference room, which had been equipped with displays showing real-time building performance data. The visitors could see energy consumption, environmental conditions, and system optimization metrics, updating continuously as the building's management platform responded to changing conditions. The traditional building management systems operate individual subsystems independently, Marcus explained, using wall-mounted displays to illustrate the differences between conventional and integrated approaches. Our platform treats the entire building as a unified ecosystem, with machine learning algorithms that optimize performance across all systems simultaneously. Dr. Patricia Williams, the facilities director for Seattle General Hospital, raised her hand with the first question. Our biggest challenge is maintaining precise environmental conditions in different areas of our facility while controlling energy costs. How does your system handle buildings with highly variable requirements across different zones? Marcus had anticipated this question and was prepared with specific data from their pilot installation. The system creates individual environmental profiles for different areas based on their specific usage patterns and requirements. In a hospital setting, operating rooms would have different optimization priorities than patient rooms or administrative offices. He pulled up a detailed zone-by-zone analysis of the Nexus Dynamics building, showing how the system had learned to provide different environmental conditions for conference rooms, individual offices, and collaborative workspaces. The machine learning algorithms continuously refine these profiles based on actual usage patterns and occupant feedback. James Rodriguez stepped forward to add technical details about the hardware implementation. The sensor networks can detect occupancy levels, activity types, and environmental preferences with remarkable precision. The system knows the difference between a quiet meeting and an active brainstorming session, and adjusts lighting and acoustics accordingly. Robert Chen, a real estate development executive, asked about scalability and installation complexity. How difficult is it to retrofit existing buildings with this technology? Sarah Kim addressed this question, explaining the modular design approach that allowed the system to be implemented incrementally without requiring major building modifications. We've designed the platform to work with existing HVAC, lighting and security systems. Installation can be phased over time as building systems require normal maintenance and upgrades. The demonstration moved through different areas of the building, with visitors able to observe the system's operation in real-world environments. In the cafeteria, they saw how the system adjusted ventilation and lighting based on meal service schedules and occupancy patterns. In the fitness facility, they observed environmental controls that adapted to exercise activities and maintained optimal air quality during peak usage periods. Perhaps the most impressive demonstration occurred in the building's main auditorium, where the system had automatically configured lighting, temperature, and acoustics for the large gathering, despite having no prior experience with this type of event. The machine learning algorithms had extrapolated from smaller meeting patterns to successfully optimize the environment for the much larger group. Margaret Foster, representing the Seattle School District, was particularly interested in the system's potential applications in educational environments. Student comfort and air quality have significant impacts on learning outcomes. How quickly can your system adapt to the changing needs of a school building throughout the day? Dr. Elena Petrov addressed this question with data from theoretical models they had developed for educational applications. Schools present fascinating optimization challenges because usage patterns are highly predictable but also highly variable. The system can learn daily schedules and prepare optimal environments for different types of learning activities. Marcus added his own perspective on educational applications. We've also incorporated accessibility features that can automatically adjust environmental conditions for students with different sensory sensitivities or mobility requirements. The system can create individualized environmental profiles that follow students to different classrooms throughout the day. This comment sparked considerable interest from several attendees, as accessibility compliance was a major concern for institutional customers. The ability to automatically accommodate diverse needs without requiring manual adjustments represented a significant advantage over traditional building management approaches. The demonstration concluded in the building's main lobby, where a large display showed cumulative performance metrics from the 6 months since the system's installation. Energy consumption had decreased by 38%. While occupant satisfaction had increased across all measured categories. Carbon emissions were down by 45%, and maintenance costs had been reduced by 22% through predictive diagnostics that identified potential problems before they required emergency repairs. David Park, representing a major office building management company, summarized what many of the visitors were thinking. These results are extraordinary. The return on investment appears to justify the initial implementation costs within 18 months, and the ongoing operational savings would be substantial. Rebecca stepped forward to address commercial considerations. Nexus Dynamics is prepared to offer comprehensive implementation support, including system design, installation management, and ongoing optimization services. We're also developing financing options that allow customers to pay for the system from documented energy savings. The visitors spent the remainder of the morning examining technical specifications, discussing implementation timelines, and exploring potential pilot programs with their own facilities. Marcus found himself answering detailed questions about algorithm development, hardware requirements, and integration challenges, drawing on both his theoretical knowledge and practical experience to address specific concerns. As the demonstration concluded and visitors departed, Marcus felt a mixture of exhaustion and elation. The technology he had originally developed in his apartment had successfully proven itself capable of delivering dramatic improvements in building performance while providing superior environmental conditions for occupants. Rebecca joined Marcus in the conference room as he packed up the demonstration materials. "I think we can safely say that went better than expected," The level of interest was remarkable, and several attendees indicated they're ready to move forward with pilot installations. Marcus nodded, though his mind was already focused on the work ahead. The real challenge begins now. We need to scale from a single installation to multiple deployments across different building types and climate conditions. Rebecca appreciated Marcus's focus on future challenges rather than dwelling on current successes. The engineering team is ready for that scaling process, and the market response suggests we'll have plenty of opportunities to refine the technology through real-world implementations. 3 weeks after the demonstration, Marcus received a call that would validate everything he had worked toward over the past year. Dr. Patricia Williams from Seattle General Hospital was ready to move forward with a full-scale implementation of the integrated building management system across their main facility. The hospital presented exactly the kind of complex challenge that Marcus's technology was designed to address, with operating rooms requiring precise environmental controls, patient areas needing comfort optimization, and administrative spaces focused on energy efficiency. The facility demanded a level of adaptive intelligence that traditional building management systems simply couldn't provide. Marcus assembled a specialized implementation team that included Sarah Kim for algorithm customization, James Rodriguez for mechanical systems integration, and Dr. Elena Petrov for environmental optimization. The hospital installation would serve as a proving ground for medical facility applications and a showcase for the technology's ability to handle highly demanding operational requirements. The implementation process took 4 months, during which Marcus's team worked closely with hospital facilities staff to understand the unique requirements of different areas within the medical complex. Operating rooms required not just precise temperature and humidity control, but also adaptive lighting that could adjust for different types of surgical procedures. Patient rooms needed environmental conditions that promoted healing while accommodating the diverse needs of individuals with different medical conditions. The results exceeded even Marcus's optimistic projections. Energy consumption decreased by 42% while maintaining environmental conditions that met or exceeded all medical facility standards. Patient satisfaction scores increased significantly, with particular improvements in comfort ratings for temperature, lighting, and air quality. The system's predictive maintenance capabilities identified potential equipment problems days or weeks before they would have resulted in service disruptions. Perhaps most importantly, the hospital's staff reported that the improved environmental conditions had reduced fatigue and increased productivity among medical personnel. Operating room staff noted that adaptive lighting reduced eye strain during long procedures, while administrative personnel appreciated the system's ability to maintain optimal working conditions without constant manual adjustments. News of the hospital's successful implementation spread rapidly through the healthcare industry, leading to inquiries from medical facilities across the Pacific Northwest and beyond. Marcus found himself traveling to potential customer sites, consulting on implementation challenges and refining the technology based on feedback from increasingly diverse applications. The success at Seattle General Hospital was followed by a series of additional high-profile installations. The Seattle School District implemented the system across 5 facilities, documenting improved student performance metrics that correlated with better environmental conditions in classrooms. A major office complex in downtown Portland achieved energy cost savings that exceeded 50% while maintaining superior tenant satisfaction ratings. Each new installation provided valuable data that allowed Marcus's team to refine their algorithms and expand the system's capabilities. The machine learning models became increasingly sophisticated, developing the ability to anticipate seasonal changes, predict unusual events, and optimize performance for building types that hadn't been part of the original development process. 18 months after accepting Rebecca's offer to lead the Smart Infrastructure Solutions division, Marcus stood before a packed auditorium at the Pacific Northwest Technology Conference, delivering a keynote presentation about the future of intelligent building management. The audience included industry executives, government officials, and academic researchers who had come to understand how Marcus's innovations were reshaping the field of building automation. The buildings we work and live in should be partners in our daily lives, not obstacles to overcome, Marcus told the audience. By applying machine learning and systems integration, we can create environments that adapt to human needs, rather than forcing humans to adapt to rigid mechanical systems. The presentation included case studies from successful installations demonstrating energy savings, comfort improvements, and operational benefits across multiple building types and climate conditions. Marcus showed how the technology could reduce carbon emissions, lower operating costs, and improve quality of life for millions of people who spent their days in managed building environments. During the question and answer session, Dr. Michael Thompson from the University of Washington asked about the broader implications of Marcus's work. Your technology represents a significant advancement in building automation, but it also suggests new possibilities for urban infrastructure management. How do you see these innovations scaling to citywide applications? Marcus had been anticipating this question, as several city government agencies had already approached Nexus Dynamics about smart city applications. The same principles that enable individual buildings to optimize their performance can be applied to entire urban districts. Imagine traffic management systems that coordinate with building occupancy patterns, or energy grids that adapt to real-time demand from intelligent buildings. The audience responded with enthusiastic applause, recognizing that Marcus's innovations represented not just improvements in building management, but the foundation for comprehensive urban optimization systems. After the presentation, Marcus was approached by representatives from investment firms, technology companies, and government agencies interested in licensing his innovations or exploring partnership opportunities. The recognition was gratifying, but Marcus remained focused on the practical applications that could improve people's daily lives. That evening, Marcus returned home to find Lucy working on another school project, this time a presentation about environmental conservation. She had incorporated information about her father's building management technology, explaining how intelligent systems could reduce energy waste and help protect the environment. "Dad, my teacher said your invention is helping make buildings better for people and for the planet," Lucy said, as she showed Marcus her presentation slides. "She wants to know if you could come talk to our class about how engineering can solve environmental problems." Marcus felt a familiar surge of pride, not just in his professional accomplishments, but in Lucy's growing understanding of how technology could serve broader social goals. "I'd be happy to visit your class. Maybe we could bring some demonstration equipment to show how the sensors and algorithms work." Lucy's eyes lit up with excitement. "Could we show them how the system learns from what people do and tries to help them? I think they'd really like understanding how buildings can be smart and caring at the same time." Marcus smiled at his daughter's ability to capture the essential purpose of his work in terms that anyone could understand. The technology he had developed was ultimately about creating environments that cared for people, that learned from human behavior and responded with intelligence and consideration. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the renovated headquarters of Nexus Dynamics, now powered entirely by renewable energy and managed by the most advanced building intelligence system in the world. The building had become a showcase for sustainable technology, hosting visits from government officials, industry leaders, and academic researchers from around the globe. Rebecca joined Marcus on the observation deck of the 42nd floor, looking out over Elliott Bay as the sun set behind the Olympic Mountains. The building around them hummed with quiet efficiency, its systems continuously optimizing performance, while providing superior environmental conditions for everyone inside. Do you ever think about how different things might have been if we hadn't met that morning in the conference room? Rebecca asked, watching the lights of the city begin to twinkle in the gathering dusk. Marcus considered the question seriously. I think the technology would have found its way into the world eventually. Good ideas have a way of emerging when the time is right and the tools are available. Rebecca turned to look at him directly. But would it have had the same impact? Would it have been developed with the same focus on serving people rather than just maximizing profits? Marcus understood what she was asking. The values that had shaped his approach to engineering, learned through years of single parenthood and reinforced by Lucy's wisdom about helping others, had influenced every aspect of the technology's development. The system was designed not just to optimize building performance, but to create environments that supported human flourishing. I think Lucy deserves most of the credit for keeping us focused on what really matters, Marcus replied. Every time we faced a design decision, I asked myself whether the solution would make buildings better for children, elderly people, and individuals with disabilities. That perspective kept us honest about our priorities. Rebecca smiled, remembering the many evenings when Lucy had provided feedback on user interface designs and accessibility features. She's been our unofficial chief ethics officer from the beginning. As if summoned by their conversation, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text message from Lucy, who was at a sleepover with friends from school. The message included a photo of the girls working on a group project about renewable energy, with Lucy explaining building management systems to her classmates using diagrams she had drawn herself. Marcus showed the photo to Rebecca, both of them laughing at Lucy's characteristic enthusiasm for sharing knowledge with anyone willing to listen. "She's going to be an amazing engineer someday," Rebecca observed. "Or teacher, or both." Marcus nodded, feeling the deep satisfaction that came from knowing his work had created a better future. Not just for Lucy, but for all the children who would grow up in buildings that cared for their well-being and protected the environment they would inherit. 2 years after the technology's initial deployment, Marcus's integrated building management platform had been installed in over 300 facilities across North America. The cumulative impact included energy savings equivalent to removing 50,000 cars from the road annually, while improving environmental conditions for more than 2 million people who worked or lived in managed buildings. The success had transformed Marcus from an invisible maintenance worker into one of the most respected innovators in the building automation industry. He received speaking invitations from conferences around the world, consulting requests from major corporations, and offers to license his technology for applications ranging from space stations to underwater research facilities. But perhaps the most meaningful recognition came from an unexpected source. The International Association of Building Engineers presented Marcus with their Lifetime Achievement Award, not just for his technological innovations, but for his commitment to developing solutions that served human needs rather than merely advancing technical capabilities. Marcus stood at the podium in the Vancouver Convention Centre, accepting the award before an audience of engineers, architects, and building industry professionals from around the world. Lucy sat in the front row, beaming with pride as her father received recognition for work that had started in their small apartment and grown into a global revolution in building intelligence. "Engineering is ultimately about solving problems that matter to people," Marcus told the audience. "The most sophisticated technology is meaningless if it doesn't improve lives, protect the environment, or create opportunities for human flourishing." He paused, looking directly at Lucy in the audience. "My daughter taught me that the best innovations come from understanding what people really need, not what we think they should want. Every engineer should have an 8-year-old consultant to keep them focused on what actually matters." The audience laughed and applauded, But Marcus could see that his message had resonated with many of the professionals in attendance. The recognition was gratifying, but the real satisfaction came from knowing that his work would continue improving lives long after the applause had faded. That evening, as Marcus and Lucy walked along the Vancouver waterfront, she asked him a question that captured the essence of their shared journey. "Dad, do you think Mom would be proud of what we've accomplished together?" Marcus stopped walking and knelt down to look directly into his daughter's eyes. "Lucy, I think your mother would be amazed by the person you've become and the way you've helped shape work that's making the world better for millions of people. She would be proud of both of us, but especially of you." Lucy smiled and hugged her father, and in that moment, Marcus felt the profound satisfaction that came from aligning professional success with personal values and family love. As they continued their walk along the water, Marcus reflected on the unexpected journey that had brought them to this point. 3 years earlier, he had been an invisible handyman, dismissed by the very people who would later celebrate his innovations. But love for his daughter, persistence in developing his ideas, and Rebecca's vision to see potential where others saw only surface appearances had combined to create something remarkable. The handyman who had been mocked and overlooked had indeed made the billionaire CEO millions of dollars, but more importantly, he had created technology that would improve lives for generations to come. It was a reminder that genius can emerge from the most unexpected places when it's nurtured by love, sustained by determination, and recognized by someone with the wisdom to see beyond appearances to essential capabilities. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.